Good evening and welcome to our Hairenik media news broadcast. We begin tonight with rising tensions along the Armenian-Azerbaijani front. Tigran Abrahamyan, secretary of the With Honor faction in Armenia's National Assembly, reports that Azerbaijan is ramping up ceasefire violations and holding military drills that simulate combat and special operations in populated areas. Abrahamyan warns that this suggests more than routine military activity. It could be a signal of broader, more aggressive intentions. He also highlighted Azerbaijan's increased use of political and psychological tactics aimed at pressuring Armenia beyond the battlefield. Meanwhile, in Gagharkunik province, an Armenian soldier has been injured in a landmine explosion. The Ministry of Defense confirmed the incident, noting that the soldier under its command is not in life-threatening condition and is currently receiving treatment at a military hospital. An investigation is underway to determine the exact circumstances surrounding the explosion. Azerbaijani aggression against Armenia's Syunik region has intensified, causing significant concern among local residents who fear that Syunik could share the same fate as Artsakh. To address the concerns and questions of the Syunik residents and to show solidarity, members of the Armenia faction of the National Assembly, Ishkhan Sagatelian, Artur Khachatryan, Tadevos Avedisyan, Geram Manukyan, Christine Vartanyan, along with Ashot Simonyan, chairman of the ARF Supreme Council of Armenia, and member Gerasim Vartanyan, held a town hall meeting with the residents in Goris. Listening to residents' concerns, perspectives, and suggestions, they reaffirmed the political position of the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, provided explanations to the residents, and emphasized the strategic significance of the Syunik region for the overall security of Armenia. Now let's go to our correspondent in Yerevan, Nare Navasartyan, for more from the homeland. Welcome, Nare.
Thank you, Ani.
Let's start by discussing today's protest at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Who were the demonstrators and what issue were they addressing?
Today's protest was led by those displaced from Artsakh, but of course there were also many of their supporters from the Republic of Armenia. The Artsakhis demanded the Armenian government to stand by their issue of returning to their homelands, their right to return, to use their channels to safeguard the heritage of Artsakh, to keep the diplomatic channels such as the Minsk OSCE, Minsk Group open, to keep the international legal cases against Azerbaijan open and ongoing, such as the ICC case. And they also demanded to stand by the return of Armenian hostages home. The demonstration was organized by the Council for the Protection of the Rights of People of Artsakh, and it was attended by the former human rights defender Artak Beglarian, who we see here, Tigran Abrahamyan, the MP from Bativune, Nare Simonyan, another displaced person from Shushi, and many others. Tatev Khachatryan, who we see here, made a speech emphasizing that the social support is not just a socio-economic support, but it is also support for keeping Artsakhis here in the Republic of Armenia so that they can fight for their right to return. One of the members of the council that organized the protest, Anastas Israelian, mentioned that even though the position of the current authorities on Artsakh, it is clear, but there are all legal grounds for future realization of Artsakh's right to return, and it is not in the hands of these authorities, because the governments, they come and go, but the people have their inalienable rights to their homeland and their properties.
Nare, what's the latest in terms of the demands for rights of displaced Armenians from Artsakh?
As we've previously mentioned, after the big protest at the Freedom Square, the end of March, the Council for the Protection of the Rights of Artsakhis has set up tents in Freedom Square, and they continue demanding the continuation of the programs of social support, as well as some of the issues pertaining to the rights of Artsaktis that we listed. The government has suggested to extend the program, this 40+10 program of socioeconomic support, for 1 more month in response to the council removing their tents and stopping their camp out at the Freedom Square. But the representatives of the council said that they're going to refuse this concession, and they're going to hold many discussions with political parties to come to a conclusion on their next steps. Among those political groups and representatives was Seyran Ohanyan, an MP from Hayastan Dashing and a former defense minister. And after the discussions at the tent, Seyran Ohanyan made a statement that these, what he called measly programs of support are nothing compared to what Artsaktis have lost, the homelands, their properties, their continuation. He mentioned that all the claims by the Pashinyan administration that the preservation of Artsakh's governmental institutions is going to be a threat to the current government of the Republic of Armenia, that it is, as they say, a government within a government. All of these descriptions are groundless, because the Artsakh institutions are there to protect the rights of Artsaktis, and as long as they exist, we have a chance to realize the right to return. He also said that the Council for the Protection of the Rights of Artsaktis, led by Vartan Oskanyan, is doing great work, and the Hayastan Dashing stands in full support of their works.
Nare, thank you. We've been following news about new passports issued to displaced persons from Artsakh, listing Azerbaijan as their place of birth. What's your read on this?
The Ministry of Internal Affairs has issued passports, as you said, to Artsaktis that list Azerbaijan as their birthplace. And as people that have fought many wars of liberation to avoid being a part of Azerbaijan and living under the control, the barbaric and cruel control of Azerbaijan, of course, many Artsaktis are really worried about the situation. Some of them even want, for example, Stepanakert resident Aren Hairenik wants to renounce this passport. In response to these concerns, the Ministry of Internal Affairs has said that it's actually just it's about following the international regulations. And if we do not follow them, the Artsaktis might encounter issues when border crossing with the recognition of their passports. It is notable, however, that in the 30 years of independent Artsakh's existence, when the residents of Artsakh had Armenian passports, they encountered no such issues. And there have been many interpretations that this should be viewed, especially from the patriotic opposition, that this should be viewed in the context of the MFA statement that says that Artsakh issue is closed and it should not be raised neither domestically or on international platforms.
Nare, Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan held meetings on the sidelines of the Antalya Diplomacy Forum and discussed normalization with Turkey and Azerbaijan. Can you shed more light on his meetings and statements?
Yes, the Foreign Minister of the Pashinyan administration, Mirzoyan, has made a somewhat scandalous statement that Armenia is as close as it has ever been. Armenia, Baku, and Ankara are as close to each other as ever. He said this to the Turkish channel NTV. And during the Antalya Diplomacy Forum too, during the discussions, Mirzoyan kept emphasizing the ideas of regional peace, the necessity to look into the future instead of the past. He was talking about connectivity, about common projects of transit, of energy. And yet we see that all those agreements that were allegedly reached with the Turkish side were not realized. For example, the opening of the Margara border point for third parties, that remains just a symbolic idea instead of real on-the-ground support, whereas Baku keeps getting real-life support from Ankara, and there is a lack of demanded accountability from the Armenian side for Ankara's complicity in arming Baku, in organizing the blockade and the ethnic cleansing of 150,000 Armenians. Mirzoyan proclaimed that the Armenian side is ready to sign the peace agreement whenever, whether it's on the border or in a third country. He said that the discussions of these logistical issues should be now on the agenda. But Baku keeps demanding a change of the constitution and the abolishing of Minsk Group. Mirzoyan seemingly agrees to these things, and he seemingly also had no objections to Azerbaijan being connected to Nakhichevan through Armenia with, as he said, facilitated Armenian control, which means no actual physical control over the goods and the transport links. But as he said, some highly technologized, transit route, travel route with scanners, etc. So Armenia is ready to make these concessions, but Turkey and Azerbaijan are not quite ready to accept them.
Our correspondent in Armenia, Narena Vasartian, thank you.
Thanks.
At an international conference in Baku, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev launched a series of threats against Armenia, stating that the risk of a new military confrontation will always persist until a peace treaty is signed and Armenia fully renounces all territorial claim over Azerbaijan. Aliyev reiterated his call for changes to the Armenian constitution, claiming that the militarization of the Armenian army poses a threat. While Baku, with its considerable military budget, frequently accuses Armenia of pursuing militarization, Yerevan argues that maintaining an effective army is a matter of sovereign right. Baku also continues to press Armenia to allow the establishment of a road that would be connecting Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan, referred to by Azerbaijan as a Zangezur corridor, and insists it should operate without respective countries. Representative of the interests of Armenian prisoners of war at the European Court of Human Rights, Siranush Sahakyan, stated during a panel discussion on Armenian prisoners of war that Armenian POWs in Azerbaijan are being tortured and face sham trials. She emphasized the urgent need for humane conditions and respect for human rights before their release. Reports indicate that some POWs are at risk of violence, with about 80 Armenians subject to enforced disappearances. Sahagyan criticized Azerbaijan for allowing limited access to only the International Committee of the Red Cross, which visits POWs infrequently and often faces delays. She highlighted the challenges faced by independent lawyers and doctors in accessing detainees, as only government-approved lawyers are permitted. Also, Armenian prisoners are denied consular services and have been deprived of fair trial rights. Sahagyan urged diplomatic action, suggesting third-party countries could offer consular services and noting the potential for an OSCE mechanism to investigate human rights violations. Currently, Azerbaijan acknowledges holding 23 Armenian POWs, with some facing unjust trials. The situation underscores the need for concerted diplomatic and legal efforts to advocate for the rights and release of these prisoners. Armenian authorities have dropped an international arrest warrant for Kamil Zeynali, accused of beheading a civilian during the 2020 Artsakh war. Detained briefly in Moscow earlier this year, Zeynali was released after Azerbaijani diplomatic intervention. Armenian officials now cite a 2007 agreement with Azerbaijan not to pursue such warrants within former Soviet states. Legal experts and activists have condemned the move, suggesting it reflects mounting pressure on Armenia to finalize a contentious peace treaty that may require additional concessions. International lawyer Siranush Sahakyan suggests that the Armenian authorities made their decision as a political strategy to avoid upsetting Azerbaijan, hoping this would encourage a more constructive stance and facilitate peace agreements. In Artsakh, the National Assembly is set to meet for a special session to extend the mandates of key state institutions, including the presidency and parliament. MP Metakse Hakopian confirmed that the Republic's Supreme Court has ruled the proposed amendments constitutional. The changes aim to prevent a legal and governance crisis as current mandates near expiration. The Armenian Patriarch of Constantinople, Archbishop Sahak Mashalyan, has spoken out against a hateful post by Bolu's mayor Tanju Oskan. The Turkish opposition party member used the term Armenian as a slur in a birthday message targeting jailed PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan. The post has since been deleted, but the backlash continues, with many condemning it as a clear instance of anti-Armenian rhetoric. Special forces from Armenia and Iran have successfully completed joint military exercises near the Mehri-Norduz border. According to both countries' defense ministries, the drills were designed to simulate counter-terrorism operations at border checkpoints. Iranian analyst Dr. Ahmed Kazemi says the exercises send a strong regional message amid ongoing geopolitical friction, particularly dismissing any efforts to promote destabilizing corridors like the so-called Zangezur corridor. The International Conference Christianity in Azerbaijan, hosted by the Pontifical Gregorian University in the Vatican, has been criticized by Armenian scholars for excluding their perspectives and promoting Azerbaijani revisionist narratives regarding historical Christian monuments like Amaras and Ganzazar. The Monument Watch project expressed alarm over the silence of respected scholars and raised concerns about the cultural erasure of Armenian heritage sites in Artsakh. The Mother See of Holy Echmiadzin condemned the anti-Armenian event, expressing disappointment that it took place in a Catholic institution. In a statement, the Catholicos of the Great House of Cilicia, Aram I, condemned the Vatican Conference for its biased approach, stressing the need for inclusivity and historical accuracy while acknowledging the deep ties between Armenians and the region, as well as the recent displacement of Armenians from Artsakh. Last Thursday marked the anniversary of the Maraga massacre. On April 10, 1992, Azerbaijani forces attacked the Armenian-populated village in Artsakh, killing nearly 100 civilians, including women and children. Many were tortured or disappeared. The massacre is a grim reminder of ethnic violence and is now viewed in the context of the 2023 forced displacement of the entire Armenian population from Artsakh. Advocates stress the importance of remembering and demanding justice. Now in local news, a powerful bipartisan letter by 25 members of the Congressional Armenian Caucus urged Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz to secure the release of Armenian prisoners illegally held in Azerbaijan and strengthen U.S. support for Armenia's sovereignty and security. Led by Congressional Armenian Caucus leaders Frank Pallone, David Valadeo, Brad Sherman, and Gus Bilirakis, the letter follows stalled Armenian-Azerbaijan peace announcements, urging decisive American leadership in deterring Azerbaijani aggression and addressing obstacles to a just and lasting peace in the South Caucasus. The ANCA welcomed the sustained bipartisan congressional pushback against Azerbaijani attempts to force unilateral concessions, a deeply flawed and patently false peace on Armenia at the point of a gun. ANCA Executive Director Aram Hamparian emphasized that any dialogue toward a durable and just peace must provide for the collective and protected return of Armenians to Artsakh, ensure the removal of all Azerbaijani forces from Armenian territory, maintain international monitoring of Armenia's borders, secure Azerbaijan's release of Armenian hostages, protect Artsakh's Armenian Christian heritage, resist Azerbaijani attempts to force Armenian constitutional changes, and defend Syunik as an integral part of sovereign Armenia. The Armenian National Committee of America has launched a nationwide campaign calling on President Donald Trump to reverse the Export-Import Bank of the United States' reckless decision to approve a $339 million loan guarantee for Boeing's sale of cargo aircraft to Azerbaijan's Silkway West Airlines. The airline is affiliated with the genocidal regime in Azerbaijan, with a well-documented history of arms trafficking and attacks on the Armenian people. The campaign mobilizes Armenian Americans and human rights advocates across the U.S. to demand that President Trump reverse the March 31 decision. ANCA Executive Director Adam Hamparian criticizes a loan that facilitates weapon transfers to Azerbaijan's genocidal Aliyev, calling it dangerous and irresponsible. He argued that the action by Exim Bank is morally indefensible, strategically short-sighted, aiding and abetting Azerbaijani aggression contrary to U.S. laws, our international obligations, and universal humanitarian values. Hamparian urged President Trump to act immediately to block the loan and uphold America's commitment to peace and the protection of persecuted Christians. 36 U.S. representatives, led by Representatives Dina Titus and Chris Smith, have called on Secretary of State Marco Rubio to impose global Magnitsky sanctions on Azerbaijani officials responsible for grave human rights abuses against Armenians, including the illegal detention, abuse, and sham trials of Armenian prisoners of war and former Artsakh leaders. The Armenian National Committee of America welcomed this bipartisan congressional letter as a bipartisan step toward accountability and justice for the Armenian people of Artsakh. Co-sponsored by the Armenian National Committee of Eastern Massachusetts, the Armenian Cultural and Educational Center will be hosting a special screening of the documentary My Sweet Land on Friday, April 25th at 7 p.m. at the ACC in Watertown. This 2024 documentary film follows an 11-year-old boy growing up in enduring war and displacement and returning to a reality where he must learn the ways of war to defend his homeland. The movie is a testament to the resilience of the people of Artsakh, where hope and trauma had shaped their lives across generations. The event screening will be followed by a Q&A with film director Sarin Hairapetyan. The event will serve as an occasion to celebrate the resilience of our people and reflect on the importance of peace and justice while supporting the creative arts. It also serves as a meaningful occasion to commemorate Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day on April 24. The event is free and open to the public. In other news from Massachusetts, this summer, the Greater Boston Nizhda chapter of the Armenian Youth Federation Youth of the ARF will host the 90th Olympic Games. This event is one of the most prominent, anticipated, and well-attended occasions, not just in the eastern United States, but across the entire Armenian American community, taking place annually over Labor Day weekend. In addition to sports competitions, the Olympic Games will feature cultural programs and musical concerts. That's all for tonight's broadcast. Thank you for joining, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and X. Good night.